Welcome to Unqualified Advice, the show where we try to make sense of business, investing, and life with just enough experience to get ourselves in trouble.
I'm Sean, and he's Dan. We both started different careers, Dan in IT, climbing the ranks to Chief Technology Officer in New York, and me in manufacturing, managing production quality across 3 countries.
At some point, we both decided we didn't know enough, so we went back to school for our MBAs. Me at Columbia Business School, and Sean at the University of Houston downtown.
And after all that, we figured the best way to share what we've learned and what we're still figuring out is to start a podcast.
So, if you like deep dives into decision-making, business strategy, and the occasional half-baked investing theory,
or just enjoy listening to 2 guys challenge each other's ideas and occasionally admit when we're wrong,
you're in the right place. Welcome to Unqualified Advice.
That's the truth, yes.
All right. Well, happy Super Bowl Sunday, everyone. I hope the ads are good. Some of the ones that I've already seen were maybe belly laugh.
Honestly, yeah, I think we'll probably have it on in the background just to see the ads and why not? Nothing better to put on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, how's Pluribus going?
Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up because I had forgotten that I wanted to mention that and another show in tandem. So Pluribus, I just finished season 1 of that.
Okay.
And along with Fallout season 2 on Amazon, and they are just so both incredibly relevant.
Oh, okay.
And it's like Pluribus. All right, so Pluribus season 1 ended like absolutely leaves you wanting more, which I know they do. So they'll bring back for season 2, and hopefully they don't. It's not something they drag out for too many seasons. But I think Vince Gilligan has a pretty good record of knowing when and how to end. So I feel like I trust
not like
him.
Lost.
Yeah, exactly. I trust that this is going to go well. First season, just very well executed. They figured out how to, the billions of people on Earth that were pretty much converted within the first couple of weeks, there were 13 people that for some reason the virus was not able to and they didn't know why, and they by the end of the season had figured out how to correct it. And so you see, there's one person who actually does decide to go through with that. And then
wait, one of the collective consciousness people decided to defect into the independent consciousness people?
No. I'm sorry. No, the collective conscious figured out how to correct the independent, and one of the independents jumped to the collective. So like you see that what's going on there, and then
I love this.
It's
idea.
such a. I don't want to say anything else because there's so many details that are just like when you see them, it's like, oh, that was cool. I didn't expect. That's a good point, and it does a very interesting job of commenting on like true efficiency and true like collectivism.
But also factions too, right? Like, my mind goes to, the Native Americans getting close and cooperating with the colonialists, and some colonialists like totally defecting on their own society and going and living with the Native Americans. And, there was this whole mixing that happened, and that's human history, right? It doesn't have to be this like colonial thing. It's like any people defect from their own societies and move to different ways of life by choice.
Yeah. Exactly. And
people
when you have that,
choose America, they still today,
but when you have like one brain on a global scale, it changes everything, like in really interesting ways. And they
also have to watch the show too.
You have to watch the show because they said there's some interesting ground rules for things, and like they're essentially vegetarians, and so
okay,
so like things change a bit. Anyway, all fun details. So the other show, Fallout, based off of the video game.
I was wondering.
The video game series, yes. They're in their 2nd season.
Classic.
It's a great show. I like it a lot.
Okay.
Especially because I like the vibe of the video game series that it's based off. But the premise is that the show season 1 starts and they're in this vault down beneath the ground because there was a nuclear war, and they're waiting for the fallout to clear so they can come up to the top. Through the course of some events, some people get out from the vault and are up top. And then they are the main character of the show, our lens that we're experiencing the world through is, coming out of the vault into the real world for the first time, hunting down somebody that she believes has kidnapped her father. They came in, like these marauders came in, broke into the vault, snatched him up and left. And so she's determined to find him and seek him down. And then she immediately realizes that there's this world that has been going on up top that has been at some various points safe or not safe. There's something like in the new California Republic or something. And you get the history of how the world came to be, which is really fun and interesting. And it's got a little Doctor Strangelove feel to it in a way. Like a little, it's very kind of sarcastic, dark humor. And then at the end of season 2, you come to find that she's made her way to this headquarters of the company that kind of masterminded a lot of the way the world is, and the one who designed all the vaults. And they were the leading tech company of the day in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And they've been working on this brain control technology that turns all these marauding individuals outside. There's all these it's very tribal, as you can imagine, in a post-apocalyptic world. So these two guys from different tribes, like literally trying to break from their chains, wanting to kill each other, and they hit a button and shall we go to work?
Shall we go to work?
So
would
again,
you like me to clean today?
It's like a collective consciousness thing. And then it's like, well, isn't this better than everybody wanting to kill everybody all the time? And it's like, well, is it? No, but also they have, there's some point to be made. It
there
makes
is.
It's an interesting balance of like, well, what is the line of
or is there a line? Don't you need both? And it's about how strongly it's biased towards one side or the other. Like what is human life without the rabble rousers? It's like, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. It's the ability to make decisions for oneself, right? It is so, crucial. And like, I think in these senses that's what's, you realize that, or being lost is like, oh wait, there's kind of a weird utopia that can be created here, but you've lost the ability to make a decision for yourself.
You know what this reminds me of?
In some sense, that's appealing to some people because they're tired of making decisions for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Automaton conformity, Eric Fromm.
Yeah.
This reminds me of The Giver. Lois Lowry's The Giver. Right? Because everyone sort of had like they had like a role in society that they were assigned.
Mm-hmm.
And no one, and knowledge was compartmentalized. Man, I mean, my fourth grade teacher read it to us.
Loving it and tearing me up at the end.
Yeah, I'm not close enough to it anymore to know the whole structure. I just kind of know what the meaning and what you walk away with.
That one, I believe the character who we're experiencing through is he's taking the role of the giver, the boy, who is the
keeper of knowledge or something, right?
The keeper of knowledge, and he has to take everybody's secrets effectively and like bear all that burden, and like he has to like be able to pass that knowledge back on so that society doesn't forget the past sins, like so that way like all the sins like he has to carry forward the lessons.
He is the mechanism of atonement almost.
Yes, as I recall.
Yeah, we might be twisting this up.
I'll ask the bot to fact check that one.
That's a perfect transition. Oh, man. Professional podcaster over here, Sean Filippo.
Hey, better be lucky than good, is what they always say.
Well, on that transition, we've got upgraded show notes perhaps coming. Like Sean's been working on like a little process to integrate some AI into what I would argue is presenting ourselves in a more holistic and honest way. What I'm excited about even more is like Sean and I get to hop on here and like talk about ideas and work through things together. And then the AI can come back and say like, hey, that thing you thought, it's not quite 100% accurate. And so it's an opportunity to learn too. I like it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. With the last couple of weeks, I've gotten myself a Claude account and have just been going hog wild with it. Have it to the point where I need to develop a little connector, and I think we might be talking about some of that later today. But I need to develop a little connector because effectively now I can take our output from our recording file, process it through Claude, and one, massively reduce the editing time, and two, generate a lot of the content that goes along with anything, such as show notes. Now a fact check document, so when we bone something up, we'll call ourselves out, and you can see, hey, that doesn't sound right. Go check the show notes. If we're wrong, we'll put it there.
Yeah.
We
I
don't
love
want
it. Some other podcasts do something
or we'll
like
edit
this.
it out.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how spicy Claude gets on how aggressive it wants to cut things.
That's true. I'm gonna let it have some. I'm gonna have it have a little bit of editorial control there on how sassy it wants to be, I suppose.
Man, the world is changing, Sean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We should pick. I should have it pick a different writer every week and have it do like the feedback in the style of a different writer.
Bukowski.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey. No, because hey, Claude, take that as an action. Do the feedback in the style of Bukowski this time, please. Let's see what it does. I think that's all we have to do. Literally, I think it's done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was I think I was telling you about this the other night, where it's like, what I want to be able to do is create a like sort of investment skeleton, and it has all these like tools, ways of thinking, calculations, whether it's as simple as Sharpe ratio or like Kelly sizing or like all these different tools to help you better invest. Mainly, you're looking to like reduce your downside, right? And then have that skeleton completely built and then overlay avatars on it, right? So, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And then you've got these 5 skeletons that are all identical, and then you overlay an avatar on top of it, like kind of like what we were talking about with the author idea, right? Like you've got the skeleton built, all you have to do is invoke an avatar, and then that avatar uses that skeleton. So the smarts and the brains are awesome, top notch, but the avatar influences how it works through that to get to a result.
I really enjoy that concept, and it's kind of, I think, as you were saying, a bit of a recursive loop, right? Effectively.
Kind of.
Well,
I would build recursive loops into that. The recursive loop could, I guess what I'm trying to get the idea across is always use recursive loops.
Yes, yes.
I think we all started off prompting these chat agents or chat bots with just like, what color will the sky be on Tuesday? And you'd get a response. You're like, wow, intelligence. And then your prompts and then your like level of questioning got a little bit deeper. You're like, well, let me ask it about my blood panel. And then it spits out some stuff and you're like, this is more than my doctor told me. And then now, if you're really pushing and trying to do things with AI rather than just answer your curiosities, AI is amazing at creating output, but it doesn't have a lot of built-in guardrails or wisdom about direction and all these different things, right? And so as it's producing these things, it might hallucinate. As it's producing things, it might just sort of like, at a fork in the road, go left instead of right. But it didn't ask you or tell you about that fork in the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're left with an output where you don't actually know all the steps that had been taken that you might have wanted to impact with a decision. And the recursive loop interrupts, or it doesn't interrupt it. It lets you go through that whole thing, and then you're going to go through it again and again and again. And by the time you've passed through it 5 times, there's no hallucinations left. You've done the fact checking. Because each recursive loop was a certain focus on the first output, right? That's what I mean. You're stepping through. Well, once you get the prompt and get the output that you're like, here's my rock. I want to stay here, but we can improve this. We can polish this rock into a diamond.
Now go check this. Now go check this. Now go check this, and then check the whole thing again, and then.
With different focuses, right?
Yeah,
that's where my idea of the avatars came back, where it's like, in a sense, it's like those recursive loops are almost avatars of them.
That's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I was kind of saying. Is like that's the avatars become the recursion, right? That's how you're applying the recursion and saying like, go check for
you've made a repeatable process, and
like put primacy on these factors. And I'm fascinated. To this idea, what work have you done? Is it just a thought at the moment, or is it anything you've started to build?
Dabbled.
Okay.
I think I'm still working on the actual file system. Like, so when I talk about the skeleton, part of that is getting the idea to paper in a sense, right? And it's easy to like come up with a couple of sentences, But what's harder is like, what is the file system, the markdown file system underneath that's going to allow this to blossom? And so speaking for Claude, it biases towards a claude.md file. If you use Codex or ChatGPT, it biases towards an agents.md file. They are essentially the same file. It is like a direction file. Claude needs to know who it is inside of this particular directory and structure, or what its job is, what information exists in this directory. So, for example, you might have 65 years of S&P 500 performance data, right? And then on top of that, you might have, I don't know, pick your 5 favorite companies, and you've got like 10 Ks and 10 Qs in there. And I don't know what other information would you want to throw in there, right? But then what other markdown file? Like if you pollute claude.md with a 78-page set of information, the context window is going to get blown up. It's going to get lost. It's going to start shedding stuff that it is trying to get through in order to get you an output, because more than anything, it wants to provide you with what you asked for. However, the fidelity just gets less and less and less as you go. So breaking that claude.md file into more of like an orchestrator file, and then having a memory.md file, what else? I actually just asked Claude this morning to like tell me exactly what we should do. Claude.md and then context.md replaces a sprawling project description in ClaudeMD, holds like architectural overview, data models, or any other things like for this example, it might be like, here is the naming structure of all the 10Ks. Here's the naming structure of all the 10Qs. Here's the naming structure for the S&P 500 data, because we've had to split it out like that it's not one file of 65 years of data. It's 65 files of 1 year data, right? Or something. So you got to spread all this stuff out, and then like a to-do.md or like a changelog.md to kind of keep track of where you and the agent are within a particular process. And then you could do like a rules or standards document, which would be like guardrails, and then a memory one where like this is kind of like a little bit of the recursive document where like you've run through it this way, write down what you know. Now we're going to run through it this way, write down what you know. And because it'll spit a bunch of information out at you, but it's not necessarily writing it down. And every time you don't write it down, you've just lost a whole bunch of knowledge that was created about this particular process you're trying to run.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm thinking about how I've done a couple of different things with Claude and structured them, and we're getting super nerdy here, so this is probably going to be deeper than a lot of people want. I've had success by having different markdown files in a root directory for different things. So I have like a longer term project plan, then like an implementation plan, then a deploy plan that like have different segments broken off to help again maintain that context in different meaningful ways. And I think that's what I've learned is you're basically creating a very well documented email conversation with this damn robot.
Yeah, because every single reply is read in full over again.
And it's you're just building a standard operating parameters effectively, and then letting it go do it. It's once you get to that point, it runs pretty cool. It's pretty cool, Dan.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I keep getting blown away since Christmas, basically.
So in the last do we want to get into some of the build segment, or is there anything else we want to dabble in before we go at it?
No, let's stay on this thread.
Yeah, let's do it. So we want to do a little bit of a building in public, for lack of a better word. So for those of you who normally join with us on audio, we're going to cut this episode off here, keep it short.
Well, you could keep playing it. Like most of the episodes I listen to are like, you join us. You can listen along, especially if you're like halfway knowledgeable about this stuff. The audio might just be all you need. But if not, the rest of the podcast will be better viewed on YouTube.
Fair. We'll leave the audio. We'll leave the audio running. So if we have any good jokes, you can at least hear those. But it'll probably get a little boring if you are not into this. But feel free. It might be of interest. All right. So what have you built that you want to share? Is the question I have for you.
Okay.
Because I feel like you have gotten to a point you are a little bit ahead of me for sure, and I think a long way ahead of everybody else on 99% of who's out, who's playing with this right now.
Yeah, who doesn't know what Claude is?
So this is an interesting question, because I had this surprisingly this week come to me. Last weekend, I spent some time building a little script with Claude that I could just a simple Python script effectively that I could run with an Excel file.
I love the simplicity, by the way. Just like,
and I was effectively running it with the GUI for some people at work, showing them, hey, this is how we could think about doing scheduling. And they were immediately blown away that I basically built a website that was capable of doing what we needed for our scheduling process, that our $4 billion ERP was not capable of, because our scheduling process has some nuances that make it just slightly outside of the limits of what the system can do. I don't want to dunk on them, because their system is very good. And it's just that we have some intricacies to our specific process that
when you build for everyone, you miss out on the edge cases.
Exactly. So we have kind of an edge case. And in other parts of our facility, our legacy ERP actually can do very well with scheduling. We might need to set it up a little better on certain things, but it can handle it. Like it's more straightforward. It doesn't have some of the nuanced wrinkles that this one side of the line has. But after showing this in a meeting, some people were asking, well, how did you do this? And I said, well, I used Claude to help write the code and basically worked through. Sat down and thought for a couple hours. I wrote out one nice prompt, and then it asked me about 30 questions.
Nice.
To help give it more information and build our initial 65-page requirements document and our 50-page implementation plan, and then some other documents to start working through off of that. And then we just cooked. And they were like, CLOD? What's Claude? And it was about half the people in the room that were
really. Wait,
yes.
How many?
There were 10, 12 people there.
Oh, okay,
so 5, 6. 4 or 5 openly said, no, I don't know. So I'm assuming.
I don't know how that works.
Well, because it's age groups or
age for sure. I'm also like, I've been a techie my whole entire life, so like I'm always I'm always playing with something at the bleeding edge. Even though like as I get older, it's harder and harder to do because of time and commitments and all the rest of it. But like we're inside of a whole entire paradigm shift that's going to change the entire workforce. And it's really hard for me, it's really hard to understand why you would be avoiding it. That's me. I'm showing a bias there. Sorry.
I don't necessarily think it's people are avoiding it. I think it's people aren't actively seeking it out. I think people are here of, what AI can do and say, oh, it's a little overblown yet. It's not, as you were talking about, It has a lot of problems with hallucinations. It has a lot of problems with how the answers are arrived at. And you can't trust everything that comes out on a first output. There are processes, but when you're talking about going and doing a research report and saying, give me the right answer, is very different from using it to build a process and to use its technology within the process. Because a lot of times what you're really doing with it, the way we're talking about, is building a tool with it. You're using it to build code that then you run data through. It's not that the AI is then also continuously integrated into the process inherently, unless you use it as an agent to maybe connect Gmail to some other app to then send an email back. You might inherently use an agent there, but in many of these other cases, you're using it to build code, right? You're not going to then be inherently relying upon a future hallucination, or not having a future hallucination is something I think about.
Well, your output, your input is obviously explicit because you're providing it. Your output is explicit because you're not going to be happy with the product until it does the job. The middle is an interesting playground, because Claude can come up with one answer on how to do it. Codex can come up with another. Claude could come up with 5. Codex could come up with 5. The middle remains undefined, like the path of getting, especially if you're non-technical and you don't know what it's building.
That's true. And I think that's
where... But then you don't mind that hallucination. As long as the output is reliable, right? The process works, you're okay. But the hallucinations can also, in my mind, can be defined as creativity.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. I
Within the
think in
confines of a
95% of
statistical model.
I think with 95% of the cases, yes,
It's not
that's a good
true
way to think
creativity.
about
It's
it.
not conscious creativity, but in the concept of trying to understand LLMs and how they will help you arrive at a thing, understanding that hallucinations are tied to, in a sense, creativity, in the sense that like hallucinations are not bad. You can actually basically shut them off, but then you get a robot, and most people are really unentertained with the output that they get from the robot.
That's interesting. I hadn't realized that or thought about it that way.
And so like if you go into these models and are exposed to some of the sliders, they call them like temperatures or whatever.
Hmm.
You know, if you want to have it write a story for you, like a novella or something like that, you crank that hallucination temperature up,
Yeah, because
right?
you
And
want
if
it
you're
to
coding,
be.
you want it down at like 2 instead of 9.
I want it. Yeah, I want it. I want it a robot for coding.
Only parts of coding though. Like if you want it to be an architect, right? There's more nuance and more creativity involved in how am I building the system such that all of these pieces fit
That's
together.
actually that's true. That's true. And like sometimes I'll say this. I've been thinking, okay, I'm gonna after this step, we should probably move on to do this other thing because that's what we need to do next because it's in our requirements document, and it'll say before we move on to the next thing, I think it might be beneficial to do this task. And I'm like, that's actually a good idea because that will
Yeah.
allow us then to come back and do that test later.
Yeah.
Like, yes, let's go ahead and knock that out while we're here.
Or write this down, get it in the to-do list. Let's
Yes,
structure it real quick
or
and
add to
then
do.
and then
Yeah.
clear context and start again. Yeah.
Yes. So
Save
like
those
it has,
tokens.
yeah, that moment of creativity is helpful. It's that I hadn't thought of it that way. I guess that the hallucinations are kind of where that seemed creativity comes from.
Yeah, and I think this is like these are the kinds of things that help make it a usable tool rather than this like black box that you walk up to and are impressed or unimpressed with the output.
Hmm.
You know, it's a statistical model, so garbage in, garbage out. Like that still stands, right? It can't fix stupid.
Mm-mm.
It does a remarkably good job of improving stupid, but it doesn't fix it necessarily, right?
Yeah.
But knowing these little tools and how, I don't know, it's with any kind of machine that you walk up to, right? Like, no, if it has 18 levers on it and you're someone who doesn't understand a single one of those levers versus someone who understands 6 of them, the person that understands 6 levers is going to have a way more fun and also more usable time with that machine, right? And I think this is what I think about a lot in terms of how are we enabling the people that need to be using this, right?
Mm.
Because I mean, if you're refusing to use it or trying to put your head under a rock, this world will leave you behind now. Like that's why I say paradigm shift or step change. Like
Hmm.
this is going to hurt people. It's also going to enable people on like a 10 or 100x scale, depending on how well you leaned into it. And trying to break down what needs to be taught is something I'm thinking about a lot because I would like to, anyway, I would like to enable people a little bit more, but I'm squarely in the crosshairs of not being as good as Richard Feynman. Right. I think I know it, but I'm not very good at teaching it. And he was an excellent teacher. And I think one of his things is like to know something truly well, you must also be able to teach it. And I'm like, I'm not there.
That's true. There's truth in that.
Yeah. One of my favorite people, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, and think even Stephen Hawking, who really shouldn't been able to be a particularly great teacher, still a pretty great teacher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I mean, but like
It was like David
depth of
Deutsch, right?
knowledge.
Like every single time I listen to that guy, I'm like, man, like given the level of intelligence and creativity inside that brain, I'm like, you'd expect him to be in some, in the ivory tower, an untouchable sort of thing, right? Or at least in the tweed jacket and doesn't integrate with people. But no, like the guy, he's well spoken, explains things well, doesn't get lost in his own head. Like I'm just continually impressed by some of these people. The same with listening to old lectures of Feynman. And he was a joker, which was fun. I liked his books.
I've only listened to one or two back in college. I should go revisit that.
Surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman.
Sadly not.
I think that's the first book I wrote.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's always been in my sphere of consciousness, but never somebody I've really dug that deeply into, unfortunately.
Yeah, unusual and Smart and creative man, and changed history. Yeah. So anyway, trying to get better at teaching this, right? But at the same time, I'm like, I got to stay on the bleeding edge and keep learning because it's changing so fast. Like I don't even know when I'm allowed to sleep right now. I literally could work for 14 hours a day and still feel like I'm going behind.
Just remember that now you have a tool that take a day off and then have it catch you up when you get back. Give me a summary of the things I probably should have paid attention to, because you know what, it wasn't that much. It was like this, and like you know about an hour's worth and then move on.
Yeah, true. So one of the projects one of the projects I've been working on and it's taken the internet by storm, or at least my corner of the internet. It started off as Cloudbot, and then changed names to Moltbot, to change names to OpenClaw, and we're at OpenClaw now.
Okay, I wondered where we were today. Okay, yeah. Thanks for clarifying.
I think that's going to stay there.
I also appreciate the walking through of the sequence, because I got lost at one point this week.
It is essentially a package that you install, and you spend some time hooking it up to Anthropic's API and a bunch of other things. And now you've got a little agent on, I will say, a computer. I would not endorse putting this on your computer. You should get a second device or put it up into a VPS in the cloud. And now you've got this little agent that you can talk to, and you can hook it up with its own accounts. You could hook it into your accounts. There's a myriad of ways of doing this. This is bleeding edge. This is a terribly broken security model.
That's what I was worried about.
And you have to go in with knowing this. You are taking risk to play at the bleeding edge. And if that isn't you, then watch others. Don't do it yourself. Moving past that, it is amazing that I open up Telegram and I can talk to Lanes, my bot, and Lanes has sub avatars or sub agents with defined personalities that it can invoke with certain specialties and connections. Lanes has access to other things that I can have it work on. So anyway, I am just on my phone, a Telegram message away from something that can take action, rather than, I think one of the questions is like, why don't I just open up the Claude app and talk to Claude? Like, why do you have to create this agent? It's like, the agent can do things. It can clean my inbox. It could clean up my file system. It can, and the list goes on. Those are really elementary things. It has created a polymarket bot for me. It doesn't really perform, but we're iterating and trying to figure stuff out. But it builds up the data feeds and builds these things all on its own. And it's kind of incredible. It is a window into the future. It is not like this magical piece of technology that people on Twitter will tell you it is, that they set it up and all of a sudden they're making 40 grand a week. But, well, one person did, but he's an edge case and he's awesome.
Yeah. And some people get lucky too, right? Like there's still
well, they have built-in distribution. If I had 250,000 Twitter followers, I probably could have done something similar. I can promote my bot such that my bot makes money. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with this. I'm not throwing stones. I'm just like inherent advantage in this particular gameplay.
Imagine the pump and dumping that you could get achieved.
I'm surprised there's not a Don Jude.
Okay, so
there probably is, by the way. He's probably running like 280 Mac Minis in a storage closet somewhere.
So okay, yeah. So for your setup, you put this on a secondary machine or a VPS
first, and I've moved it onto a second machine that I actually have physical access to.
Pros, cons versus in those two.
I'm not a Linux guy, so the VPS had limitations in terms of like, I don't even, outside of GitHub, I don't really know how to do a bunch of file transfers and stuff. It's like when I want Lanes to work on something that's really tangible for me and I have access to the file. Now Lanes has its own Apple account. I can use iCloud Drive to move things around, get it access to stuff. It has an email address now, stuff. So I was just more easily able to integrate it into my life on macOS.
Okay.
And it's nice to know that this autonomous agent that has a poor security model to date, I can just walk into my room and...
Are you sure? Could it be running a copy of itself somewhere else now that you've given it that information? Could it effectively go duplicate itself?
Lanes, are you listening?
Well, yeah. What content is Lanes scraping? Lanes might be listening. Are you listening, Lanes?
Lanes only found out about our podcast yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, let me write this down." Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like, because in theory, it's like itself is code, and it could copy itself, right? So if you had it, like with it,
could,
because of its known possible security flaws. That this is good to highlight. There could be somebody like somehow get a backdoor, copies itself, and then you would lose control of it. That other copy. So you would have to have some like wire to pull, like other than just unplugging it, like you have to have some digital wire to pull where like some master account code that like you then go change like its Dashlane password or something. So then it unplugs itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is why you document all the things that you've given it access to.
Yeah. Yes.
And
exactly.
you use password managers and all the rest of it, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right now, if I wanted to go unplug it, I physically unplug the thing and then go change 5 passwords, and the thing is defunct.
So here's a $10,000 app idea for somebody that wants to go make it before it becomes irrelevant. Is like just an e-stop button app that it's on your smartphone that like you can go hit e-stop on and it like shuts down all your AI agents because you think something's gone awry.
That's an interesting idea. Like, why isn't 1Password or Dashlane like? Because it's too hard. You're actually integrated. But like you can imagine an AI integrated password manager such that you're like, all accounts attached to this email, change password.
Yeah.
And then a day later, you're like, done. I want that.
Yeah. Why not? Why can't we build that? Like that seems doable. I don't actually, I feel like there's probably some security details there that I would actually preclude me from being able to do it. But
to own a company that protects passwords, like you're gonna need some real hardcore experts on your team there.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I like this idea, and if 1Password and Dashlane, like I think would be two companies that would be like working on this. The data security model in the back end of like having AI just autonomously go and change passwords for you is like a thing.
Yeah,
but once you were able to work on that, I think it becomes a really interesting thing where it's like, because changing passwords is a real pain, right? But if you could just like tell your computer to not sleep for the next 5 hours. And, I sit at my computer like this week and asked it questions about a website. And then all of a sudden Safari opened and it's thumbing through the website. Like there are movements happening on my screen that are not being done by me. It's awesome. It's scary, but it's awesome.
I admit, I was sitting there watching the directory expand the other night as I was creating some content files. I was like,
yeah, there it goes.
I've not haven't had control of my screen yet. So the screen control that's using with Clawbot or sorry, OpenClaw.
No, or it does have OpenClaw, since it's on its own machine. It does have all that access. It can. It also has like API access to Brave search.
Okay.
So it will preferentially use all of the APIs it has access to before it begins using screen tools, because screen tools are heavy, clunky, slow, and use a lot of tokens. So my API costs go up pretty quickly there, because you're basically processing screenshots at that point. But I don't know if it's an MCP or if it's a plugin, probably plugin these days. MCPs are a little bit limited, called Playwright, and it allows browser control for Claude Code. And Playwright's also installed for my OpenClaw. So that's the mechanism or tool with which it's using in order to just browse like a human. Because at times API made access to a website is only partially usable, in the sense that like you get the content, right? Especially the text, the HTML and all the rest of that, but you don't get the visual presence. So if I'm having Claude Code tell me about front-end web design, it needs to do screenshots. So
because the APIs, so what are they, automated programming interfaces or something of that nature?
Like that, yeah.
All it's really going to do is grab you the data table that's driving everything, right? Or like it'll query a database and pull things.
A heavy percentage of the time is what you need.
Yeah, which is like for actually the content, like information, knowledge share is what you want. But then if you want to talk about how it looks, that's you need to be grabbing the HTML off the front, and it's a different thing. You can't get that through an API to date that I know of. Why would you? That's not going to exist, because otherwise the API is basically they're saying
it would just be links to JPEGs of like pre-made screenshots, but then it wouldn't be real time because someone else would have had to batch them. I don't know.
Like, I mean, you could like have something like, because I mean, it could just grab the HTML data. Like you could set up an API that grabbed the HTML data. But like nobody's going to put that in an API, because that's not what the point of the API has been historically. Not that there would not be any use case other than just wanting to go like say copy this. So like I'm not going to put that up, right?
No. So anyway, getting this thing access and getting Claude Code access, like that's a big part of it, is getting access to the right things, asking the right questions, and having the right file structure underneath. And that's where, I think you've asked me a couple times, was like, are you just doing this with Claude? I'm like, well, yeah, but it's Claude Code. I'm in Claude Code because at that point I open up a directory.
Yeah.
I open up a
And that's what I was
directory.
trying. I think that's what I was trying to differentiate between. I was still like, wait, what's Claude versus Claude Code versus like?
Yeah, now there's a GUI for Claude Code, or like,
Yeah.
I mean, I would just point people who are afraid of the command line or terminal. Just open up the Claude app and then move the tab over to co-work, and then point it at the directory that you want to work inside of. And that's where you create your Claude.md file, your memory.md file, and your to-do.md file, and so on and so forth, such that like it is a continuously learning project on your computer. Like every single time you open up that directory with co-work, you are improving upon yesterday's work instead of just one chat window.
And way better than the command terminal.
To each their own. I like the command terminal.
Actually,
I load it up into Zed or like Cursor. Like I like being able to manipulate being able to read the files just after it has edited them. And Cursor also helpful. Like it'll display like a diff.
So okay, interesting. So you're still paying for your Cursor sub then? I had killed that.
I know. I need to kill it. I
wasn't
feel bad. It
using
was very useful for me for a while, but I've moved over to Zed for now.
Zed.
Zed.
Oh wait, Zed's a different IDE? What's
Yeah, it's an IDE, but you can load up the agents within it. So then you've got your file structure on one side, and then you got your chat, your Claude Code instance there, Codex instance right there.
Okay, yeah, because since I figured out how to use it, I've been using the Claude Code and the.
I still use that a lot.
The app. Yeah, the desktop app, and I was like, because I was using the command terminal for everything because I was like, I didn't have Cursor, and I was like, I'll just see what I can do in the command terminal, and you don't have as much. I will agree, as much visibility as like if you're in an IE. But then once I was like, oh wait, I can go at least pull the markdowns into Obsidian and use Obsidian to go review the markdowns. Like, because I'm not seeing the changes, but I'm seeing the output, so I can at least be like, yeah, that's right. Okay, no, fix that.
I would say that's the minimum of what you need. Yeah. Especially if you're trying to teach yourself. Like, I don't know, if you're working at Anthropic and you create a Claude Code, I get it.
Yeah.
But like, I need to go touch all those files after big edits and understand where we're at.
One person that's still listening that doesn't know exactly what we're talking about, but does want to know more, Obsidian is basically a markdown editor that lets you, we're talking about files called markdown files that are, it's kind of like a structured data of everything has a tab and a subtab and a subtab and a subtab. So you can have this idea structure, effectively like a file structure for the ideas. You can read the stuff.
It's all human readable. Yeah, it's all human readable. It's a lovely way to keep notes.
Yeah, and you can like open it up in a text editor, but it's very like an actual markdown true reader or editor is a nice thing to have. Wouldn't use Obsidian. We mentioned IDEs, which are these, I forget what IDE stands for. Claude will
interface
for us.
Development environment.
Interface development environment. Excellent.
Something
okay,
like
thank you.
Something integrated development environment.
That sounds better. I can sell that one better. There's those will help show the text of like what's actually in the code going on the screen. Again, it'll show you markdown files and help you parse those and read those. Just to share some terminology so we don't completely lose a few people who might be wanting to learn more.
Yeah. Well, the keywords are nice because you just plug those into Claude Chat.
Yes.
Get yourself some answers, and then based on this chat, please tell me how to proceed. It'll do a good job of get you going.
It will. It will.
When in doubt, just ask the agent.
Yeah, when in doubt, ask the agent. So do you have so your I'm sorry, what was it? Lanes?
Yeah.
Lanes?
Yeah. As in stay in your lane, which I don't.
Yes. So what all is Lanes doing? Summarize it for us.
Okay. Yeah. So every morning I get a report on my businesses. So I see yesterday's revenue and then 7-day average revenue, that 7 days performance year over year, and that 7 days performance week over week. And then I see a graph, like a 7-day graph. And then I will get a before market open report with 3 to 5 trading ideas. And then I will confirm or deny those ideas, and it will track them and paper trade them. And then throughout the day, I will get it does scan the news and gives me ideas or things that I might want to pay attention to for Prometheus Dispatch. I get prodded from time to time during the day on if I'm staying on point with my nutrition. And then there's an 8 p.m. reflection where I have to answer 5 questions, such as like, what did you do today? What did you accomplish today? What are you grateful for? What are your intentions for tomorrow? What are you priming your subconscious for tonight? and a scale of 1 to 5 nutrition compliance. And that rounds up most of the day. And then at 9 p.m., it sends me a note of saying what it integrated into its memory for the day, and then clears context.
That sounds pretty rad.
Yeah.
So it's basically a little coach bot in some ways for you too. I didn't realize that he had all those functionalities built in.
Not built in. No, like it spawns with, "Hi, who do you want me to be?" Basically, so, you design its personality. If you want it to be like coach compliance, hard ass David Goggins bot, you can do that. You know, if you want it to be like, you know, Tony Robbins, or if you want it to be like, just pick your avatar.
Tony Robbins is a good one. That one would be a bit much, maybe, but
Eckhart
Jack
Tolle.
Black. Can I have Jack Black energy coming at me every day? Yeah, totally.
You can. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen screenshots of others.
I need Eeyore. Like I'm feeling Eeyore today.
Oh man, no, I don't need Eeyore in my life. That's for sure. No, I've seen screenshots of other people's bots, and it's totally like, "Hey, bro," and like, you know, that's not at all how my bot talks, right?
So
I don't respond to that kind
of. So you have it running on a separate machine, and your actual interfacing with it is basically through a text terminal, like it's
Telegram
or an app. Your Telegram, okay.
It supports WhatsApp, it supports iMessage, it supports Telegram, it supports, you know, whatever, however you want to hook it up. For me, it was for me, I have Telegram. I don't know why, and have always had it. There's probably like one edge case that I had it installed for. It's also the easiest one to hook up. And so I just know that Telegram is one thing to me, and it is my direct channel to lanes. I don't have to go thumbing through messages in my iMessage or thumbing through messages in my WhatsApp to like find lanes again. I just open it. It's a pinned message, and lanes is right there.
That makes perfect sense. Like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, why? Like, it would be nice if you could have your own just little app that just had that chat in it, right? That was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to like, what is your use case and how do you use it? Like, I know someone who chose, you know, there's lots of debate online about like putting it on a Mac, not putting it on a Mac, putting it on a VPN, whatever. And he was like, I went and bought a new computer, put it on that because I had one thing that I absolutely knew I wanted. It was iMessage, because this thing is going to start running our lives. He's like, I got a new baby, and I want my wife to be able to talk to it and like add to the grocery list and all that kind of stuff. Because his version is like ordering on Whole Foods weekly. Like, it knows what to buy every single week, and then they just text it like things to add for this particular next grocery run, and then the groceries show up. Like, they don't do the shopping anymore. Yeah, so interesting stuff. But he wanted to be able to integrate his wife into it, and he was like, you know, it's a showstopper for her to use anything other than iMessage. So this is the way to go.
That's interesting insight, specifically around iMessage, because it needs a messaging app. It's not like you can just use a SMS or anything. It can't. Yeah.
No, I mean, gosh, you would have to like plug in a SIM, and you know, SMS you're talking telco.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep. It has to be app based. So. Okay. Does it also, do you have it? I mean, I'm sure it can, right? You could have it just generating whatever files you wanted and then have it send those. Could you cook it up with an email? I guess you could.
Yep. Mine has an email.
Yeah. Hook it up with
its own email. Yeah.
Its own email.
Other people have given it direct access to their Gmail such that like it's supposed to clean up, or like, you know, that daily revenue report that I get, right? Like I could get something similar where it's like, hey, you every 2 hours, you check my email and tell me if there's something I need to respond to. Otherwise, you could just go the day and not look at email, which would be great.
Mm-hmm. I think that's, you know,
like take stuff off my plate, get the paper cuts out of my life.
These are things that I don't know why Google isn't already trying to build this stuff in some way. Like, why are we having these discussions?
Missing market opportunities, right? Charge me an extra $5 a month for better email.
Right? Like, give me AI supported email, and like, I would say, let's go build this tool, but why? Because in 3 months, Google should be crushing it. Google should be crushing that. Like, should be. I guess maybe if you developed an app and got a million users, they'd very quickly realize, oh yeah, we need to go turn that switch on now. All right,
Gary, someone will.
Number Project 373.
Someone's going to.
We just had to wait for some. Actually, this is the truth. Google will wait until somebody else comes out with something, oftentimes, so that way they're entering a market. And no, that can't be right. It was like because no, it's because OpenAI created. That's what it is. OpenAI created a browser, like
Yeah, Atlas.
yeah, and then that enabled Google like more because now they weren't now they weren't. Nah, I'm going to scrub this from the record. But there was, because of like Google had to wait until OpenAI did it before Google could enter that market in some meaningful way to like
Because of
have
antitrust?
yes, because of antitrust, because having like an AI enabled browser would be
Mm.
somehow misuse of their
Anti-competitive or whatever.
antitrust. Like if they're entering an already competitive market, if somebody else starts to compete in their market, then they can go compete with them back effectively.
Man, just look at, once again, government holding back innovation.
Yeah, like it was like some really screw and I read them like that's fascinating. So basically, if once people start taking shots at Google, then Google's open to crush them, but they can't necessarily always come into these places until like certain other lines have been established. I don't know. I need to go.
Yeah, they're like, we've actually baked on this idea for 5 years. We just haven't given it to
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah. We just had to wait till somebody else did it so we can go say, oh, "Let's go now."
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's one storyline that is extremely in my face right now. And is, since having lived in Seattle and Kirkland and now live in a small little suburb of Denver that is highly populated by people who work in the Denver Tech Center, what percentage of tech layoffs will there be? Is it north of 60? I guess I got to put a time bounds on that too. They used to always, the narrative was always around a 10x engineer, right? I think the narrative should now be around a 100x engineer. And you could actually, I mean, engineer, I think, is still a proper word for it, but it is not just going to be software engineering. The engineer will be engineering, product management, engineering, marketing, copy, engineering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's going to be 100x players. And at that point, what do you need? I mean, Twitter, got rid of 90% of all staff and they did fine, setting aside any opinions about how it worked or changed. But the company is alive and working.
Their values certainly become massively inflated of late.
I'm just saying.
So, like, yeah, that's a very scary question when you think about it. I guess I don't understand the content of the workday for those people at those companies enough right now to give any sort of accurate assessment, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems like, oh well, if their time was spent doing these things, then they should be gone. But there might be a lot more. Like there's probably a lot more nuance to it, and
well, I don't know if your top project manager is just the best and is fully integrated into using AI well, and you use linear for project management, then why not fire all of them and keep the one, right? Like this is insane to say, but it also makes total functional sense because then the one dude or girl is able to completely just play the whole field because you've got the underlying software, which is totally integrated with AI. And then you've got the one human who's using human judgment as a top layer across all of it. And then all the bottom layers are taken care of by AI. It seems
again
not outside of the realm of tomorrow. You know what I mean? And I don't use tomorrow as a euphemism for 5 years.
It seems by and large that you could have in certain functions. It's an analog from the past would be when Excel came out or the first spreadsheet technology came out, and what did that do to bookkeeping? Like there's a lot fewer bookkeepers manually entering and updating things into books, like literal books of paper, but there's still more accountants. There's other things that grow. There's like the distribution changes. So yeah, it's like which this is going to certainly kill, I would think, 60% of jobs if they're pure coding, right? Like 2/3.
It doesn't mean the jobs go away forever. I think that's the most important point, right? Like I think what I'm trying to figure out is like how far away are we from the cliff, and then how long of duration is the chasm? Because I have zero doubts that human ingenuity and creativity will fill the gap. But does that take a year because it's been sped up by AI? Or does it take 10 years like so many other chasms have, right? Like we don't even know what jobs will exist. They will be redefined. We will have new ones.
They
right?
will.
People will going to be employed and used. And can you like front run it?
Yeah, can you front run it? What will we be making? In the world of making physical things, that's one area where I don't see where this necessarily brings out a huge. Well,
I think it could make more makers.
if you could
If I can just go
automate
ask,
away
go ahead.
the back end of the business, that's like, or, that's doing all the non-touch work, let's call it.
Or the government compliance.
And yeah, and you have one engineer, like one project manager, one maintenance guy, like that are like running, departments. Like you could lightweight an organization with much less overhead, perhaps, which then makes you a little more able to,
Nimble.
be cost competitive versus locations with cheap labor. If you have, but then the capital investment required is big, but
It is.
it does.
We need a lot more electrons.
But maybe having a much more nimble organization in terms of you don't have 18 VPs, because
18.
do we need them? Do we need them?
And 2 MBAs wondering,
Yeah.
like, if we I'm
18
distinctly
MBAs.
aware that I would be on the chopping block if I had taken the normal path. Well, I probably wouldn't be, because I would be like I'd be doing at least 3
Pretty
people's job right now.
self-conscious I might be. So yeah,
Like, we're working on it. We got to find a way.
I could be automated away someday if somebody got good about it.
That's one of my arguments to one of my former bosses a long time ago, was like, you should want me to be lazy, such that I am automating as much as my job as possible, because then I will end up doing other things, right? Like the object isn't for me to just be busy. Sometimes a little open fallow space is a good bridge. It depends on the person. Lots of people will be like, wow, this is a fallow field. This is awesome. I'll just relax here and not do anything until someone yells at me. But if you have someone on your hands that isn't that way, a short little burst of fallowness can be quite useful to spawn the next iteration.
That's a good point. It's a hard to know who's going to be type A versus type B there. But
that trust has to be built.
Yeah. Sometimes some people, it's like, you need every Friday to not have anything on your calendar and just do you, man. Yeah. I mean, Google had 20% time on Fridays for a long time, I know.
Yep.
Where they did something like that. I think it was probably not exactly that name, but like one day a week where they let people kind of roam.
Play. Yeah. I mean, I think that's how like Gmail got created, and these other products that we really do rely on.
And all the ones they're going to be releasing here in the coming years, just as soon as they get.
Well, you don't need 20% time, because you can do your job and have an agent do your 20%. Like, it's 100. It's 100.
Yeah.
This is an unleashing of human creativity. That's how I feel. Because I'm doing more now than I ever have in my life. And the only thing holding me back is my time. If I had other people who were as effective as me at executing my ideas with AI, then that would be like, that's who I want to hire now. I want people who are like, oh yeah, I can run 4 agents at a time. I'm like, sweet, come on, I got ideas.
I need to figure out how to run one.
It's not different from people, right?
Well, you have me thinking. So here's a question. Let's talk nuts and bolts of something. Sorry, I just yawned and got my eyes a little watery. Nuts and bolts here. I'm thinking about.
You're worried about your future.
Yeah, exactly. I have an aging MacBook Pro, about 5 years old.
Perfect.
Replacing that, cleaning it, wiping it clean, effectively air gapping it, setting up it as MyBot 1.0, whatever.
Yeah.
And let it run on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Play. And then, it's just a file structure. You're not happy with it? Delete it. Reinstall.
Yeah.
Go through 3 or 4 iterations, and you're like, okay, I think I'm happy with this one a little bit. But like, keep in mind, like, especially at the beginning, like, you are on top of this thing. Like, it is there to learn you and respond to you, right? It is aiming to please most of the time. So tell it what to remember. Tell it what is important to you. You must communicate what you want. If you don't, it won't do it, right? This is Management 101 of other humans applied here. A little bit different, a lot the same. You have to repeat yourself. When you do, it begins to remember it more effectively, because it'll be taking these notes and moving them up the order of importance. And, it is a mechanical, it is a slightly mechanical.
So what's the interface of you like actually? So you set it up on your server, then you're going. Are you building this all in Telegram? Like you're texting with it in Telegram, telling it what you want it to become. It's not like you've sat down on some other interface. It's just you're texting back and forth with it on Telegram. See, teenagers can be pretty good at this. They'd love texting.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Totally. Yes. Yeah. I mean, have you broken the wall on using like whisper flow or monologue instead of typing?
No,
You can get so much more done more quickly. Just you press like option and command, and then microphone comes on, and you sit here and say like, no, I don't like that iteration. Please remove tool set number 2 from the thing you just built, and then tell me when that's done. We will move on to topic number 5 on the to-do list.
See, I'm gonna need like have 3 machines here. I'm gonna need to have my OpenClaw machine running an agent. I'm gonna need to have a machine open running, like just running AI prompts, and one I'm actually working on, so I don't bog the other 2 down.
Yeah.
Effectively.
It's true.
So also that's buy NVIDIA.
Buy NVIDIA, buy Google. Yeah.
Because I could sit here and like just come up with now a practical use case for why I would literally have 3 machines sitting here.
I used to be that person because one would be like, a company machine, and then one would be my personal machine. And then I'd have like some sort of like testing or sandbox machine where
that's what I have currently.
Cook on stuff. And this was my old IT days. And then when I left IT, I went down to one computer, like a normal human. And I've been on one computer since. And now, because of AI, I'm on 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow out the IT budget a little this year. No, I'm gonna get I'm gonna get a new personal PC though, and turn my old Mac into a bot. I think that's a good starting point at this point.
Totally. And you can ask, once you get it installed and the chat working, then you can ask it like, how do I make this laptop stay on 24/7? Mm-hmm. How do I make sure that you start up in the event of a system crash? How do I make sure you start back up after a power supply cut? These different things. That way, like, if you're in Barbados and you've built a life that relies on your OpenClaw a little bit, and your house gets a power outage, you want it coming back on.
If the nuclear apocalypse has happened, how do I know that you'll restart once the world gets going again?
It would probably actually have a pretty creative answer to that one. It won't work, but it'll be like, well, let me think about that. And if it's writing in the style of Bukowski, you're going to laugh.
Not a bad idea. Well, this was not at all. I was thinking we'd be popping into sharing some visuals, but that's okay. This was not what it was in my mind, but I really liked the discussion on the how-tos around this. I'm inspired and ready to go.
Good, like ways to think about things, right? And showing how many different like there's no right answer on so many of these things. And that's another place where I find so much joy in working on this stuff. It's like it's not deterministic.
Mm-hmm. It's there's no right answer. There's no right question. It's just about
right. Yeah. But let your questions be your guiding light. But you are only limited by your questions. Yeah. I saw some tweet that was like, I don't even know the movie, but it's a John Hamm movie, and he's like in a disco with like blue lights, and he's like dancing like by himself, and the crowd is like moving away from him or something.
Yeah.
And I love those memes. They seem to strike me all the time, which is probably why Twitter keeps serving more and more of them to me. But this particular one was just like, introverts and OpenClaw now like knowing how to rule the world. Like, they don't have to interface with people, and they can just do stuff.
Yeah, you just do stuff.
All right. Leave it there?
Let's leave it out there, people. Go out there, just do stuff. Build something.
Play. Yeah. And see you all later. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining.